Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Big Game Hunters. I'm Mike.
I'm Tom. On today's Chit Chat, we're going to talk about expansions, as promised last season.
And in the rest of today's show, we're going to be taking a look at Last Night on Earth. We hope you enjoy it. Hi, and welcome to the Chit Chat. Today we're going to be discussing a topic that we wanted to cover last season but just couldn't get to, and that's expansions for board games. Expansions are very pervasive in the industry now. They're almost inextricably linked with board games. Certain companies, I think, are more known for continually expanding their products, like Fantasy Flight, but you see them everywhere. When I first started buying games, when I first started putting my collection, I actually really avoided expansions because I felt like if I'm putting my dollar into a game, I want to get a whole new game and a new experience. There was nothing I felt like, I'll put the same money into just getting added content for this game.
I never really had that experience. I've always loved expansions. I really liked most expansions for the earliest board games I played. What comes to mind? The World of Warcraft board game.
Mm-hmm.
All the expansions for that were just amazingly added new content. It was great. The only expansions I don't think I ever really liked were ones that modified the core game or changed the rules, or they felt like a supplement, or that they were editing when they should have done that the first time.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
The Order of the Stick board game, for example, when they released their expansion, they just made it a much shorter game. Like the gameplay was just too long, and the expansion just redid all the rules using the same components.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of had I think I know what you're talking about. Quarriers did a similar thing. When they came out with the Cormageddon expansion, they released a new updated rules set. You can play either the original rules or the updated ones that change the way culling the dice work. Mm-hmm. And I actually haven't played with those, and I feel like I'm not sure if I really like the base game. I don't think I want to change it that fundamentally. I want the new content, but I don't want a new game. And Thunderstone kind of has done the same thing with Thunderstone Advance to a lesser degree. One of the things I really liked about Thunderstone, and this will come up in a later episode, I'm sure, is in the base decks, you had a very weak starting point. Your initial 12 cards are really bad. And a lot of players complained about that and said, I just can't overcome these Iron Rations problems. That's one of the base cards in the original set. So when AEG came out with the new version, they swapped out some of the weaker base cards for stronger ones. I personally feel like I kind of enjoyed the game when we had to struggle in the beginning. That's something that I got attached to when I first started playing. So I know what you mean in that expansions that change the core game can sometimes change it for the worse, or they really should have been done the first time around.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that some companies like Fantasy Flight are really release a lot of expansions, and there are a few companies I can think of that expansions are like their whole product line. Steve Jackson,
yeah,
Flying Frog, the game we're going to review today.
That's
Last
right.
Night on Earth. They have a devotion to their.
They have what, 3 game lines that they?
4 now. There's
okay.
four game lines, but they release content for them regularly, and that's an interesting aspect to the industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like expansions? Why do you think, expansions are so prevalent in board games? Is it because companies are unwilling to take risks with brand new content? Or is it because people are really clamoring for them? Why do you think expansions lend themselves to the board game industry more than, say, successful film sequels? With expansions adding to the original game, or even DLC for video games. I feel like expansions were kind of even ahead of that big DLC boom in the video game industry.
I think with board game expansions, you avoid a lot of the things that, for example, the movie industry experiences with sequels. Highlander 2, anyone?
Please don't. No one.
You avoid that a lot with board game expansions because if you don't like the expansion, you just don't include it. But with Highlander 2, that's canon.
You can't unsee it.
That's right.
And that's a good point too with Highlander 2, for instance. When you have a different crew or different budget, a lot of things end up changing from one iteration to the next with the films, and maybe that's why they're less successful.
There you go.
With board games, I think designers specifically are willing to kind of stick with their creations a little more. Yeah. I think they are given this freedom in a good way to stick with a game that's doing well and to keep providing content for it and keep growing it. You end up with very kind of organic gameplay then. And so, we see this with, this brings to mind TCGs, LCG's living card games or limited card games. It's a game where you buy, small packages of preset cards, and the game is really all about being expanded in that way. That game is designed purely to take advantage of the expansion model.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that's kind of unique to the tabletop hobby that you don't have with the others.
What would you say your favorite expansion is?
Ooh, that's
the
a good
game
question.
the expansion that changed the game from a maybe to a yes for you.
Oh, for a maybe to a yes. Oh, no, that's easy. Dominion. So the Dominion base game, when I first played it, hated it. There just wasn't enough to it. The cards were very straightforward in their effects. It was just plus actions, plus gold, plus buys. Mix them and match them as you see fit. And there wasn't a lot of flavor. In my opinion, Dominion still doesn't have as much flavor as I'd like. But there was just not enough going on with the base set, and it got stale. It was stale immediately for me. When you throw in... Now, I don't know if it was one expansion for Dominion. I kind of played them all at once. So it was, I played base Dominion. Then a friend brought over Dominion plus Seaside plus Prosperity plus Alchemy. And when I played them with all of that in one box, it was a much more complete experience. That's, I think, an example of expansions not really just adding to the game, but completing the game. I think that since then, the deck builders that have followed Dominion have done a better job of having a complete game. Thunderstone, the first Thunderstone Advance, pretty complete. The Courier's Tin, pretty complete. You get a lot of replay out of that. They did a nice job of including more complex and more thematic creatures and cards in the base set. But yeah, I think that's the one where totally different, night and day experience for me. Without the variety of the expansions for Dominion, not a fan.
Great.
How about you?
I might have to go with Race for the Galaxy. I don't have a lot of experience with that game, but
Yeah, I was surprised by that pick.
the different mechanics I see between the few expansions that I have seen for between the base game, there are just so many more options. Just with the few mechanics that one expansion adds, there are so many more options on the table that I'm still having trouble grasping the game, and I was really impressed by it.
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. Anything else on expansions?
I like making them.
That's right. Yeah, I do also, but I think that's going to have to be a topic for another time.
Right.
Maybe another chit chat.
I agree.
All right. So that's all we really have to say about expansions for now. If you'd like to talk about expansions, or if there's any kind of expansions you think you'd like us to discuss, just give a little comment below and tell us what you think. Next, we're going to be teaching you how to play Last Night on Earth. Now I'm going to teach you how to play Last Night on Earth. Last Night on Earth is a survival horror game played by the heroes and the zombies. Only one team can win by completing their objectives. The scenario card that you use in your given game will determine the objectives for the said game. In this example, Save the Townsfolk, the heroes win by rescuing 4 townsfolk and keeping them alive until morning. The zombies win by preventing the heroes from doing that, either by killing enough townsfolk or by simply killing all the heroes in time. The game will end when the sun track runs out. This particular scenario had 16 turns, so you would set the sun track marker on 16. This measures either the night turning into day or the day turning into night. Last Night on Earth comes with a variety of components, the most crucial of which will be the scenario card. The scenario card tells you how to win and when the game ends. It also comes with a variety of heroes. On the hero card, you'll see the starting location for each hero, along with a variety of special abilities, a number of wound points. If Jenny receives 2 wounds, she is killed, and some keywords that will come into play on certain action cards. Jenny, for instance, is a female and a student. The game comes with the sun tracker, which I explained earlier, and 6 L-shaped boards, which go around the central board. Only 4 of the L-shaped boards are used in any given scenario. It comes with 6-sided dice, of course, for fighting, a variety of zombie sculpts in both green and brown, and all the hero figures you'll need. Finally, and most importantly, the game comes with a variety of hero and zombie cards. The hero cards will be used by the heroes in a variety of ways. They come in 2 main types: items and events. Certain items will have a range if they're a ranged weapon, and various icons which will be referenced by various keywords. Some cards may list, items specifically, may list a combat bonus. The combat bonus comes into play when a hero possessing that item fights. Some events can be used for two different effects, in which case it will say an or in the middle. Zombies have only event cards. If a zombie event card is played during a fight, it will have the fight keyword on it. Some zombie cards must be played immediately. In that instance, it will say play immediately in red in the middle. They must be played as soon as they are drawn by the zombie player. Finally, certain cards stay in play on both the hero and zombie sides. If a card says it remains in play, you simply keep it in play. To set up Last Night on Earth, you're first going to have to randomly generate the map. There are 6 L-shaped boards included in the box, and 4 of them will randomly be chosen to be placed around the center square. Once you've built the map, you're then going to randomly select heroes. 4 hero cards will be drawn from the hero deck. Once you've selected the heroes, they'll be placed on the board in their respective start zones. If their starting space does not appear on the map, then they start in the center of the map and start with 1 hero card. If that hero card is an item, they begin in possession of it. Finally, you're going to spawn the starting zombies. You'll roll 2d6 and spawn that many zombies from the zombie spawning pools. They must be spawned evenly, so 1 zombie cannot be spawned on a spawning pool that already possesses one unless each zombie pool possesses a zombie. Then you're ready to begin the game. Once you've completed setup, the game turn is played out with the zombies going and then the heroes. The first thing the zombies do on their turn is move the sun marker. The sun marker on the first turn of the game simply starts on the number depicted on the scenario card, in this case, the 16. In future turns, you will move the sun track marker 1 space towards 0. When the sun track marker reaches 0, the game will end with one side achieving victory depending on the conditions. Then, the zombies players will draw new zombie cards. Now, there are always going to be either 1 or 2 zombie players. If there is 1 zombie player, he or she will have a 4-card hand. Before he draws cards, he can discard up to 1 card, then draw to 4. If there are 2 zombie players, they'll each have separate 2-card hands and may each discard 1 card to begin. Then they'll refresh their hand to 2. Some zombie cards, remember, say play immediately. They must be played as soon as they are drawn before doing anything else on the zombie turn. After you draw new cards, the third thing zombie players will do is roll to spawn new zombies. If there is a single zombie player, he will roll 2d6 and add them together. If the result is higher than the number of zombies currently on the board, new zombies will be spawned at the end of the turn. If there are 2 different zombie players, they each roll 1d6 and must roll higher than the current number of zombies each player has individually. Then, zombies will move. Zombies move 1 space and are afflicted with zombie hunger. Zombies may move through walls unlike heroes. Zombie hunger means that a zombie cannot leave a space with a hero in it and must always move into a space containing a hero if possible. Finally, zombies will fight heroes. When fighting, the zombies roll 1 fight die and the heroes roll 2. Zombies win ties. Only the highest fight die result is used, so when they roll off, the heroes will compare their highest result to the zombies' highest result. If there are many zombies or heroes in a single space, then they are divided up as evenly as possible, with the heroes choosing how the fights begin. So if there are 3 zombies in a space with 2 heroes, the hero players can choose which hero will fight 2 zombies. Once the results are compared, taking into account any cards that are played, the zombies will wound a hero if they have rolled a higher result. If the heroes have rolled a higher result, they will simply fend off the zombie. The zombie stays in the same square, but does not do anything else in the turn. If, however, the heroes have won the fight and rolled doubles, the heroes get to kill the zombie. The heroes, of course, may also use weapons in fights to help kill zombies faster. After fights are resolved, you place any zombies that are going to be spawned. So in the early party of the zombie turn, the zombie players roll to determine whether they will spawn new zombies. In the 6th and final phase of the turn, they place zombies that are going to be spawned. You roll a d6 for a single zombie player, or 2d3 for 2 different zombie players if both of them have rolled correctly to spawn. To roll a d3, you simply roll a d6 and half it. So a 1 or 2 is a 1, a 3 or 4 is a 2, etc. Once you've determined how many zombies will be spawned, they are spawned from the spawn points evenly, just like at the beginning of the game. After the zombies have finished their part of the turn, then the hero turn begins. Once the zombie players have completed their actions, it's time to activate the heroes. The heroes can be activated in any order, and the order can be changed from turn to turn. When a hero activates, he goes through 4 phases. First, the move action. A hero may move 1d6 spaces and may move diagonally. A hero may not move through walls and may not move diagonally through doors. In addition, a hero must stop anytime it encounters a zombie. A hero that starts in a square with a zombie, though, may move out of that square without penalty. In addition, if the hero player is indoors, he may instead take a search action. When searching, the hero player simply draws the top card of the hero deck and places it in his hand. If it is an event card, it can be played at any time, and it can be played on other players' turns as well. However, if it is an item, it must be revealed and equipped to the hero immediately. A hero can only equip 4 items at once, and only 2 of those items can be weapons. Hand weapons and ranged weapons are used interchangeably for this purpose. Once a hero has completed the move or search action, then he or she may exchange items with any heroes in the same space. The item exchange is done both ways, and there are no real restrictions on this exchange other than the 2 weapon and 4 item caps. After exchanging items, the hero may fire a ranged weapon if he possesses one. To fire a ranged weapon, the hero looks for any zombie within the line of sight and range. The range is usually listed on the card. For instance, the revolver has a range of 3. When determining line of sight, the hero may ignore any walls he is adjacent to, as it is assumed that these walls have windows that the hero can reach through. Ranged weapons will either specify a hit or a kill. A hit and a kill are synonymous other than when using zombie heroes, which are relevant in some scenarios. After completing the ranged weapon firing, it should be noted that ranged weapons can only be fired once, even if they were in possession by 2 different heroes in a turn. After completing the ranged weapon firing, the heroes will fight zombies. This is done the same way as on the zombie phase of the turn, except the hero must fight every zombie that occupies his space, as he could have left this space if he chose. Once the heroes have completed their actions, then it's time to go back to the zombies. Play proceeds in this manner until one player has achieved victory, or until the sun track marker has reached 0. And that's how you play Last Night on Earth. Now that you know how to play Last Night on Earth, we're going to take a look at it in our patented point-counterpoint review.
Normally, if we don't really disagree about a game, we'll roll to see who takes which side, pro or con. But because Mike and I seem to be disagreeing a lot lately, I'm going to take the pro because this is an awesome game. He's going to take the con because he's wrong. Start us off, buddy.
Oh, man. So, the first problem I have with this... I don't hate the game. But the first problem I have with the game is that it's just too rulesy. What I mean by that is there are too many corner cases, there's too many nitpicky rules, and they really just pull me out of the experience. So, for instance, when I was learning how to play it, my play group could not get our heads around shooting through walls. There's a rule in the book that says if your hero is adjacent to a wall, you may ignore that wall for shooting a weapon because there are windows in it, presumably. And that just didn't make sense to us. It was really unintuitive. It's not clear if you ignore the entire wall or just that square's section of the wall. It just didn't work for us, and it really mired the game. Another one that really bothers me in the rules is that, and I really thought about this during the tutorial, is that when you go from 1 to 2 zombie players, the gameplay actually changes fundamentally, whereas the number of hero players don't change it at all. So when you have 1 zombie player, you roll 2d6, and you have a mixed pool of zombies, the brown and puke green zombies. But when you have 2 different players, you split the group, and you each roll to spawn separately. Now, and for that matter, your hands are separate. So when there's 1 zombie player, you have a 4-card hand. You can discard 1 at the beginning of the turn. When you have 2 zombie players, you have 2 different hands of 2. You can each discard 1. I just don't like the way it fundamentally changes it. When you spawn them at the end, you roll 2d3 rather than 1d6. Those are not equivalent, as any D&D player will tell you. It just changes the game in a fundamental and unnecessary way. I just don't like it when the mechanics change with the number of players just because they needed to do it quick and dirty.
Well, the game isn't really about a strategic or tactical game. This box is about playing it over and over, about reliving this movie over and over. Replayability is the fundamental thing I think you're missing about that change. I mean, everything about the game, from the quotes on the cards, the quotes on the character sheets, the evocative nature of the board, has a soundtrack even. It comes with a soundtrack.
It does have a soundtrack.
Everything about this game says replay me. How many different scenarios are in it? How the game does change depending on who's at the table, the number of players at the table, the cards you're gonna draw. Just so much about this game is replay me that I can forgive the little wonky mechanics that they're talking about.
And when this game says replay me, I say pass, because there's just too much luck in it. There's too much luck specifically for the amount of investment. This game is a funsy experiential game masking itself as a strategy game. That's what I don't like. The game purports to have all this decision making and all this strategic play from turn to turn, working with your team to achieve victory. But in reality, I feel like everything's on the turn of the cards. The cards vary so much. They do such a wide variety of things. The scenarios are also vastly different that I feel like it's very hard to actually get anything going. The spawning zombies, if the zombies aren't coming out quickly enough, the zombie players can't make anything happen. I just feel like there's too many variables that really influence the outcome of the game more than the player decisions. And on a relatively long game, on a game where everyone has to do a lot of moving around and a lot of rule book reading and a lot of thinking, there's just a lot of time spent on a game that I think is ultimately coming down to some dice rolls.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think the stars of a be-real horror movie do a lot of thinking when they're running up the stairs on their hands and knees? No, because...
No is the answer you're looking for?
Because this isn't about the high-minded strategy game you claim that it's masquerading as. It's about the theme. It's about, I am the chainsaw-wielding farm girl who's gonna save the town. That's what this game describes, and that's what it does. That's what it's for.
And I would be okay with that if I could play it with a mixed group of friends. So if I could sit down, set up Last Night on Earth, not take forever to explain the rules, and then play it with anybody and have a good time, I could get behind that. But I feel like playing Last Night on Earth with a mixed group just always ends the same way. There's always at least one alpha gamer around the table, sometimes myself, who, when he sees other people making obvious misplays, feels compelled to correct them, especially if we're working on a team.
Yeah.
So in a normal team game, I want to be able to have a conversation with my teammate. If I'm playing with somebody who's as experienced as I am, that works out great. But with a new player, it's not really a conversation, it's more of a teaching. And that just doesn't work for a game that's supposed to be light and fun like this.
Well, let me interrupt you there.
Absolutely.
With a game like this, you have... I completely agree with your premise that a mixed group is going to have mixed feelings.
Because I think it's hard to win this game for your team, but you can definitely lose it for your team.
But one thing that is constantly changing about this game is that the company, Flying Frog, is constantly producing new material for this. And not all of it is even expansions that you have to buy. They do stuff on the website. So every time they release a new expansion, even the old experienced players do have to revisit their strategies and their scenarios. So just save those scenarios for when you do have some new guys at the group, then everyone's on a level playing field.
That's pretty fair. And I have to say, regardless of what I do think about the game, Flying Frog does do a nice job of continuing the line. So I will give them that.
So what's your final rating?
Yeah, for me, Flying Frog may be nice, but they did not produce a great game in my book. So Last Night on Earth, like I said, because there's just too much luck in it for how much time it takes, for how much effort it takes to play, this is one I really only have in my collection to bring out on Halloween. For a game I play once a year, I can't really give it a great score. I'm going to say a 5 out of 10.
It's honestly better than I thought you were going to give it.
There's enough, you made some good points. There's enough in here that I can have fun with once in a while.
For me, I do love the game. It still only gets an 8 out of 10 for me because of all the reasons you said. It is a pretty high luck game, even though I think a lot of that luck can be mitigated by the skill and decisions you make on your turn. But yeah, 8 out of 10 for me because it's a great game. It does have a few problems, so it doesn't quite score perfect.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll hear more about the game in exact detail when you break it down.
And now we have the breakdown for Flying Frog Productions' Last Night on Earth. It plays in about 60 to 90 minutes pretty consistently, so we gave it a 35 short and a 65 long. On the slow-fast scale, we gave it a 70 slow and a 30 fast because it plays out at a pretty relaxed pace. You don't do a whole lot on other players' turns. Sometimes you do, but it's not really a concern. We gave it a skill of 30 because it has a few decisions regarding the actions heroes can take and when to sacrifice or not to sacrifice a hero and card timing on your turn, but it has a whopping luck of 70 because it has an immense hero and zombie deck and it does have a dice-driven combat mechanic that really decide the game more than the player's skill. It's almost an entirely tactical game with decisions regarding movement and when to play cards, so we give it a 90 in tactics and only a 10 in strategy because it's really only a few scenarios that can make you make decisions over the course of several turns. For interaction and independence, we give it a 90 interaction and 10 independence because mainly your side, your team, you're all working together and you're interacting with the opposing team. And unless you're the only zombie player, there's not a whole lot of independence there. On the immersion abstraction scale, we gave it a perfect 100 immersion. From the evocative cards to everything having quotes, to the soundtrack CD, you feel like you're the star of a B-reel movie. But sometimes with the quirky and niche rules, it can make it a little difficult to learn, so we gave it a 75 complexity and a 25 simplicity. We gave it a 95 in grandeur because of the high quality of components, and it's a really impressive look when it's all set up for play. And that doesn't even take into account all the expansions available for it. As far as expandability and completeness, we gave it an even 50-50 split. There's so much replayability in the core game, and the designers have shown us that there's room and want for additional expansions. And lastly, we have our trophy scales. For originality, we give it 3 trophies. It is immersive and immersive and cinematic game, and it does have a unique zombie fend-off mechanic where you don't really win, you don't really lose, and you don't see that a lot in zombie games. For value, we give it 4 trophies, because even though it is an expensive game, including all of its expansions, there is a lot of game in each box. So that's the breakdown for Last Night on Earth.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Big Game Hunters, and we hope you enjoyed Last Night on Earth. Next week in the Chit Chat, we're going to be talking about barrier of entry, the idea that games are a social medium, a viral medium that must be passed from one player to the next. We're also going to be taking a look at Mage Wars, the new big release from Brian Pope and Arcane Wonders.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for weekly updates, see the links below for our Facebook and Twitter pages, and leave us a comment below.
See you next week. I'm Mike.
I'm Tom. On today's episode, we're going to talk... What did you shake your head at?
We're not going to talk. I didn't shake my head. I looked at you. I look at you all the time.
Oh, sorry. I seriously thought you were just like...